My name is Emily Davis. I'm 33, and this weekend I buried my father. He was 56, heart attack. One of those sudden, cruel things that leave you gasping, trying to remember what life looked like before it tore itself apart. The funeral was small, very small. Just my mother, my older sister, a few uncles, and a cousin or two. Nothing grand. Nothing that screamed final goodbye. Just enough people to watch me crumble without comment. My mother's hands shook as she gripped mine. I swear I felt her bones through her skin. My sister cried so hard I thought the sobs might fracture her. And me? I was numb, moving mechanically, shaking hands, listening to the same platitudes over and over. He's in a better place. He's watching over you. Until the words lost all meaning. I should have expected grief to come like a storm, but I wasn't prepared for the storm to have a second, sharper edge. Because while I stood over my father's casket, watching it descend into the cold earth, my phone buzzed. A text from Nathan. Hey babe, can you pick up pizza on the way home? Also, can your family drama wait? I have friends coming over. LOL. I read it 3 times. 3 times. And each time, the words sunk deeper, cutting sharper. My father's casket, literally being lowered into the ground. And Nathan is asking about pizza. Calling this moment my father's funeral family drama. I didn't reply. I didn't even blink. I pocketed the phone, my stomach twisting in disbelief and rising fury. My uncle, noticing my silence, asked if I was okay. I lied. Yeah, I'm okay. Somehow I made it through the rest of the burial, my fingers numb, my throat tight, my mind spiraling between grief and disbelief. The reception at my mother's house was supposed to be comforting. Instead, it was underwater. Voices echoed. Stories about Dad floated past me like ghosts, laughter and tears colliding in a blur. I was present, but not really there. Later that evening, I drove home alone. It was nearly 8 when I pulled up to Nathan's apartment. The second I opened the door, my worst suspicions were confirmed. Music blasting, people laughing, wine bottles scattered across the coffee table, empty pizza boxes stacked haphazardly, friends sprawled on the couch like they owned the place. One of them spotted me. Oh, hey, you're back. How was it? How was it? I wanted to scream. My father was dead. I had just buried him. But all that poured out of my mouth was silence. Nathan appeared from the kitchen, a little tipsy, his grin oblivious to the chaos. His hair was styled perfectly, makeup untouched. He liked his perfection. And he wore the dress I had bought him for an anniversary months ago. He chuckled. Babe, perfect timing. We need more wine. Can you run to the store? I stared. Flat, hollow, unable to process the audacity. Get out, I said, my voice cold. He laughed. What? Come on, don't be weird. Have a drink with us. You've been so depressing lately. Loosen up. I buried my father today, I said. Short, direct. Nathan waved a hand. Yeah, that sucks. But life goes on, right? My friends came over to cheer me up. Dealing with your family stuff has been really hard on me too. You're not the only one suffering here. Every word hit like glass shards. Then I remembered the text, pulled out my phone, found the message, and forwarded it to someone I knew would understand. His mother. Nathan froze when he saw my face. Who are you texting? Your mom, I said. The room fell silent, like the air itself was holding its breath. You what? Panic rose in his voice. I sent her your text, I said, showing him the screen. Can your family drama wait? His expression shifted rapidly, from tipsy to pure panic. You can't. That's private. You can't just... You called my father's funeral drama, I interrupted, and asked me to pick up pizza while I was at the cemetery. I sent it to your mom. His friends began shuffling, murmuring excuses, eyes wide. The truth hit the room like a sudden winter gust. Nathan frantically dialed his mother. No answer. Again. Nothing. Call her back. Tell her it was a joke. It wasn't a joke. Yes, it was. You know I joke around. His voice climbed higher, cracking under pressure. Pack your things, I said, motioning toward the bedroom. I'm not going anywhere, he cried. You're leaving. Clean this up. Pack your stuff. You're gone. Tears began to roll down his face. Baby, please. I wasn't thinking. I messed up. One text during my father's funeral, I said, and that was enough. 20 minutes later, his mother arrived. She looked around, saw the wreck, and her face changed in ways I hadn't seen before. Shock, anger, disappointment. Nathan tried to plead, but his mother's presence rendered him silent. She turned to him. Get your bags, or I'll pack them myself, and leave them on the curb. He hesitated, tears spilling freely, the panic of humiliation and accountability consuming him. But eventually, he moved. 3 trips later, the apartment was quiet. His mother looked at me quietly. "I'm so sorry about your father, and for everything you've endured. You deserve better." I nodded, couldn't speak. I closed the door behind them, looked around at the wreckage Nathan had left behind, and finally, let the tears come. Not for him, not for the betrayal, but for my father, for the father I would never see again. And that's where it ended that night. Grief, sorrow, and the first taste of justice. I had hoped, naively, that leaving Nathan in his own mess would give me a shred of peace. But even as his mother's car disappeared down the street, the apartment smelled of stale wine, cheap perfume, and the faint residue of burned-out laughter. The living room looked like the aftermath of some careless war, empty pizza boxes stacked like little monuments to his oblivion, wine glasses smeared with fingerprints, cushions thrown haphazardly across the floor. I stepped over a half-empty bottle and paused. My mind was still hovering between grief and disbelief. I could almost hear my father's voice, calm and practical, reminding me to assess before reacting, but all I felt was the raw, unfiltered surge of anger that had been building all day. Nathan appeared in the doorway of the kitchen, trying to look casual, but the tremor in his hands betrayed him. "Emily, come on. It's not that bad. We were just—" I cut him off, voice low and sharp. "Not that bad?" I gestured at the chaos. "Do you have any idea what day it was today? My father is dead. I buried him this morning, and you threw a party?" He laughed nervously, brushing imaginary dust from his sleeve. "I didn't throw a party, just had a few friends over." "Your friends are sprawled across my couch like they own it," I said, my voice gaining strength. "Your friends are drinking wine, eating pizza, and laughing at my grief. And you—" I pulled out my phone. "Sent me this." I showed him the text I had forwarded to his mother. The words burned on the screen. "Can your family drama wait? I have friends coming over. LOL." Nathan's grin faltered. "It's just, I didn't mean it like—" "You didn't mean it?" I echoed. "My father was in the ground, Nathan. In the ground. And you were planning to drink, eat, and laugh while I tried to stand upright. Do you even know what grief feels like?" He stammered, reaching for my arm. I stepped back instinctively, disgust curling in my stomach. "I sent it to your mother," I said quietly. "She'll understand exactly what this means. Unlike you." Panic spread across his face. He reached for his phone, dialing frantically. "Mom, wait! It was just a joke. She's taking it the wrong way." His mother's voice came through the receiver, firm and controlled. "Emily's right. Pack your things. You're coming home with me tonight." Nathan froze, wide-eyed, as if someone had yanked the air from the room. "No, I'm not leaving. This is my apartment." "It's not your apartment," I said flatly. "It's in your name, but I'm making the decision here. You have no place to stay tonight. You're leaving." He shook his head violently. "This isn't fair. You can't do this." "I can," I said. Every word was deliberate, measured, filled with the anger and clarity that comes only after betrayal. "Pack your clothes. Everything you brought. Make it fit. Your makeup, your shoes, that plant you forgot to water. I'll make sure it all goes. And then you're gone." His friends began gathering their bags, whispering apologies, practically running for the door. The laughter, the chaos. It evaporated like smoke. Nathan's panic was palpable now, his voice cracking. "Baby, please. I wasn't thinking. I didn't mean—" "One text during my father's funeral," I repeated. "One text. That's all it took to show me exactly who you are." He tried to cry, tried to plead, tried to justify, but I no longer had the space in my heart for excuses. I moved methodically, helping him pack, but not helping in a way that excused him. This was about boundaries, about reclaiming my home and my life. 20 minutes later, his mother arrived. She didn't knock. She stepped in, surveying the chaos with the kind of disappointment that silences a room. Nathan froze, completely undone. "You threw a party," she said quietly, her voice carrying more power than Nathan's protest could, during her father's funeral. Nathan tried to speak, but she cut him off. "Get your bags. Now." He hesitated, looking at me as if I were the villain, but I had long since stopped worrying about his perception. He was packing, tears streaming down his face, shaking with anger, humiliation, and fear. As they left, his mother pulled me aside, her voice softened. "I'm so sorry, Emily. You didn't deserve this. Not today, not ever." I nodded, swallowing hard, too exhausted to speak. She gave me a brief squeeze on the shoulder and left, leaving me in the quiet wreckage of the apartment. I finally sat down on the couch, staring at the mess. And then, for the first time all day, I let myself cry. Not for Nathan, not for betrayal, but for my father. For the empty space he left behind, for the life I would now have to navigate without him. And in that quiet, surrounded by chaos, I felt a spark of something I hadn't felt in hours: clarity. If grief had stripped me bare, betrayal had sharpened me. I would survive this. I would endure. And Nathan? He would not get to define my life anymore. The next morning, I woke to a silence that felt heavy, almost suffocating. I thought maybe, finally, the storm had passed. But it hadn't. Nathan's text started immediately, relentless and infuriating. "I can't believe you kicked me out. Mom won't even talk to me. This is all your fault. If you had just explained..." My stomach turned. I didn't reply. I couldn't. And I knew if I responded, I would be dragged back into his chaotic vortex. My father was gone. My grief was raw. And yet here was Nathan, demanding attention, twisting reality, and expecting me to accommodate his selfishness. It escalated quickly. Friends started getting involved. A group chat emerged, with questions, criticisms, and pleas. "Really? You're going to humiliate her over one text?" I read the messages carefully, but the words blurred. Nathan was spinning a story, his version of reality, painting me as cold, unfeeling, even abusive. I sat at my kitchen table, phone in hand, and realized something crucial. He was trying to erase me, to manipulate everyone who knew me into believing the exact opposite of what had actually happened. Every message, every post, every distorted story was designed to destroy my credibility, my sense of control, even my sense of self. Then the emails started. Fake accounts, unknown senders, same malicious style, threats disguised as concern. "Hope you're happy ruining someone's life. Your dad would be ashamed. Everyone knows what you really are." I felt my chest tighten. Panic wanted to rise, but I forced it down. My father wouldn't have wanted me paralyzed by fear. He'd want me to fight with precision, with reason, not emotion. I took screenshots. Every text, every email, every social media post. I organized them meticulously, labeling them, time-stamping them. Nathan's mother helped too, going through group chats, cross-referencing dates, and confirming the patterns of malicious intent. She was an unexpected anchor of clarity in the chaos, reminding me, "You didn't cause this. You're just cleaning up someone else's mess." Then came the fake HR complaints. Anonymous emails to my workplace accusing me of creating a hostile environment. Someone had even claimed to be me in online forums, twisting truth into lies. I took a deep breath and I called HR. Every conversation, every report, every piece of evidence was documented. The office became another battlefield, but this one I could control. I wasn't going to be gaslit in my own life. At night, I lay in bed exhausted, grief still raw, anger simmering just below my skin. The texts kept coming, each one a reminder that Nathan hadn't just crossed a line, he had obliterated boundaries entirely. And yet, through it all, there was a growing sense of purpose. I was no longer the woman trying to appease a selfish partner. I was a woman protecting her home, her life, and her mental stability. Every screenshot, every call, every legal step I took was a brick in a wall of defense. I was rebuilding the sanctuary that Nathan had tried to demolish. By the end of the week, I had a folder, thick with evidence, photos, timestamps, and messages. Each page, a record of his attempts to manipulate, intimidate, and erase me. It was exhausting, terrifying, but also empowering. My grief remained. I still felt the hollow ache of my father's absence, but now it was accompanied by clarity. Betrayal does not define you. Control does not belong to anyone who refuses to respect it. And the storm Nathan had unleashed? I was weathering it, one calculated step at a time. As the sun set outside my apartment, I made a promise to myself. I would protect my home, my memories, and my life. I would not let him rewrite history. And most of all, I would honor my father by moving forward with the strength he had instilled in me all my life. This was only the beginning. Nathan's harassment was far from over, but for the first time, I felt the balance of power shift. And I knew, deep in my bones, that I was ready for whatever came next. It was a quiet Friday morning when the first in-person confrontation occurred. I had hoped the restraining measures and careful documentation would be enough, but some people never learn until they hit the wall of reality. A receptionist's voice called my name. "There's someone here. Says she's your girlfriend." I froze. Not possible. I had blocked him. I had documented everything. And yet there she was. Or rather, Nathan. Dressed meticulously, hair perfect, makeup flawless, holding a coffee cup like a peace offering. My pulse spiked. "Emily," he said, smiling as if nothing had happened. "Brought you coffee. Can we talk somewhere private?" "No," I said, flat. "We're not together. You shouldn't be here." Nathan's smile faltered. "I missed you. Let's just talk." "No, leave, now." He shifted, frustration seeping into his posture, voice rising. "It was one text, one, and you—" "One text during my father's funeral," I shouted, letting the rage I had held all week break free. "You called my father's death family drama, Nathan? One text. That's what this is about. Get out." Security stepped in immediately. Nathan's facade cracked. His voice escalated, venom laced with panic. "Fine, but you're going to regret this. Everyone's going to know what you're really like. How controlling, how cruel, how abusive." I didn't flinch. Every accusation, every scream, every attempt to manipulate was recorded. I stayed calm. I knew the truth, and it was mine to hold. Then it happened. He hurled the coffee at me. Hot liquid soaked my shirt. Scalding, shocking. Security acted instantly, restraining him while he screamed, threatened lawyers, and tried to justify himself. I stood there, shaking, soaked, furious, but also aware. This was exactly the evidence I needed. The camera had captured every second, every threat, every physical act. By the end of the day, a police report was filed. Nathan was escorted out. His attempts to control, intimidate, and manipulate had finally collided with reality. The court granted a temporary restraining order. Still, the harassment didn't end immediately. Emails, anonymous accounts, false HR complaints, they all continued. But every attack I received, every lie he tried to spread, became part of a dossier, a fortress of proof that could not be ignored. Weeks later, the court date arrived for the permanent restraining order. Nathan didn't show up. Judge granted it anyway. 5 years of no contact. His mother, who had once tried to defend him, sat silently in the back, arms crossed, eyes watching him fail from a distance. Finally, I could breathe. The harassment stopped. The emails ceased. No more messages, no more chaos. The apartment was mine again. I changed the locks, installed security cameras, and began the slow, painstaking process of reclaiming every inch of my life Nathan had tried to contaminate. And yet, grief lingered. My father was still gone. That pain hadn't lifted, and it wouldn't. But the betrayal, the manipulation, the selfish cruelty, I had survived it. I had documented it. I had faced it. And I had emerged intact. Friends checked in, quietly, without judgment. My mother and sister became my anchors, helping me process, helping me breathe, reminding me that life still had warmth and care. And slowly I began to remember what it felt like to live without fear, without manipulation, without betrayal pressing on every moment. By the time his threats had ended, I had transformed. Not unscarred, never unscarred, but aware, prepared, and undeniably resilient. This wasn't just about surviving Nathan. It was about reclaiming my life from the shadow of grief, betrayal, and chaos. I had won something far more valuable than justice. I had reclaimed control. The days that followed were quieter, though the silence carried its own weight. The apartment smelled clean again, wood polish, faint traces of coffee, and the lingering warmth of my father's memory in the corners. No laughter from Nathan's friends. No chaotic music, no invasive messages. Just me, my grief, and the slow pulse of life trying to remind me it would go on. I started small, Sunday afternoons with my mother, watching my father's favorite shows, sharing quiet stories of him, sometimes laughing, sometimes crying. My sister stopped by almost every morning, making sure I ate, reminding me that surviving didn't mean being alone. They were my anchors, steadying me when memories of betrayal or grief threatened to topple me. Social media became a battlefield I no longer entered recklessly. Nathan's posts, his manipulations, the lies he tried to spread, they all vanished from my daily life. I shared only what mattered: a photo of my father's favorite tool on my desk, a quiet moment of remembrance, small victories, symbols that grief, though ever present, would not define me. A few days later, I received a text from an unfamiliar number. "I'm sorry for everything. I was wrong. I hope you can forgive me someday." I left it unread for hours, then days. Forgiveness wasn't mine to give, not yet. Not for the coffee, not for the harassment, not for the month I'd spent fighting instead of grieving. I blocked the number. Some things couldn't come back. Some things couldn't be undone. And yet, life persisted. I sold some of my father's tools, keeping only a few that reminded me of him in tangible ways. His wrench sat on my desk, a silent companion to the work I still had to do, the life I still had to rebuild. Each day, each small act, was a step toward reclaiming normalcy. Therapy helped. Twice a week, I unpacked grief, betrayal, and the layers of emotional exhaustion that Nathan had tried to exploit. Clinical words explained behaviors and patterns, but the real work was in the quiet moments, breathing, standing my ground, learning that my boundaries mattered more than anyone else's sense of entitlement. Time passed. The apartment became mine again, not just a space, but a sanctuary. I changed the locks, installed a Ring camera, and allowed myself the luxury of feeling safe. Friends visited, not to rescue me, but to sit beside me, offering support without expectation. My mother and sister remained constants, the family I leaned on while the world recalibrated. One evening, as sunlight spilled across the living room, I looked at the empty apartment and finally felt a flicker of peace. Nathan's shadow had passed. The chaos he had imposed was documented, bounded, and contained. I had survived grief, betrayal, and targeted harassment. I had endured, and I had emerged with clarity and strength. Moving next month to a new apartment, somewhere untied to memories of loss or chaos, I knew I was stepping into a life that Nathan could not touch. Some scars would remain, but so would lessons. People reveal themselves in their lowest moments. Boundaries exist to protect, and grief, while consuming, could coexist with resilience. I whispered into the quiet room, words only I could hear. "This is mine. This is my life. I will not let anyone, not even grief or betrayal, take it from me." And for the first time in weeks, I believed it. Not a perfect ending, not a happy one in the fairy tale sense, but enough. Enough to breathe, to live, and to honor my father by embracing life in all its messy, painful, but undeniably beautiful reality.